All right, we'll say good morning, good morning, good morning. Let us conclude. Mesillas Hashem, Perek Chaf. Incredible. We're finishing up Perek Chaf from Mesillas Yesharim. The Ramchal says, Nimtzeis Lamed. Therefore, it turns out that we learn. What is it that we learn? She'abalis Chasid Chasidus Amitrabos. Remember again, the title of this parak was Mishkala Chasidus, weighing Chasidus. And the whole point that the Ramchal was making within this parak was what? That being a Chasid requires me to weigh my actions. And sometimes something may look good in the moment, but may in fact really be detrimental and negative. So here he's going to sum this up. Nimseis Lamed. It turns out, we'll say this last piece is almost like it's a summary of the entire parak. Nimseis Lamed. Shabal is chassid chasidus amiti. If somebody wants to be truly pious, sarach sheyishkol kol na'asav lefiat halodos hanushachos bohem. I will say it is not enough to look at my actions through the prism of the present. I have to think about what my actions are going to cause in the future. The toldos, right? What's the offspring? What's the repercussions, ramifications, the results of my actions? Lefi ha'es. So I will say, I have to look at the context, the ace. Like, right now, at this time, is this the right thing to do? Lefi ha'chevra. I will say, socially, I have to examine if I do this now in this chevra, is the right impact socially. Lefi ha'nosei. Literally means, again, according to the subject, meaning, is this something that is truly necessary or not? Ulafia makom. And where I am, situationally. So we'll say, what Ramchal says is, before you do something that you think is pious, that you think is chasidus, you just have to weigh it. Is it the right place? Is it the right time? Is it with the right group of people? Is it going to have positive byproducts now and in the future? Or is it going to be something that may be episodically positive, but Lamaisa could have long-term detrimental effects? And I will say sometimes you answer these questions and say to yourself, you know what? It's not the right time. It's not the right place. It's not the right chevra. And therefore it turns out that what? That sometimes abstaining from doing something is actually more pious than the performance of the act itself. It's incredible. He says, sometimes you could have something that looks really good, really pious, but if I do this, the results are going to be negative. And I will say, sometimes you'll have something that may look negative right now, but in the long run, in the long term, ultimately will be positive. So look what the Rebbe says, Hakol holech achar hachitum v'hatolada. The Rebbe says, isn't this incredible? How sometimes, again, our worlds collide. What do we just say by Naziros? It's all by how you finish. Right? You got to cross the finish line. What does the Ramchal say? Hakol holech achar hachitum. Everything is determined by how you finish. Now, the Rebbe say, the goodness and the piety of any individual act is not simply measured by its present importance, but the piety of any particular act is measured by how it's going to end. What's the ramifications of this long term? What are the repercussions of this act down the road? That's what really determines the effectiveness and the piety of this particular act. It goes on. Because I will say, at the end of the day, life is a long game, right? Life is a long game. So therefore I will say, when we act, when we make decisions, and this happens to all of us too often, all we're doing is I'm looking at the present, totally uncognizant of the future repercussions and ramifications of my actions. What is good and what is pious and what is holy is not simply determined by what is good now, but it has to be determined by what will be good down the road as well. I will say, making these decisions really requires an understanding heart, right? It's not pasha. It's not pasha. Now the Ramchal says, everything I do, I have to think about, like, what are the long-term repercussions and ramifications of this action? He goes on, he says, because the truth is, in order to make these decisions, he has to have what you call a leiv mavin, an understanding heart, and a seichel nachon, and a right, and literally, again, a correct intellect. In other words, we'll say, you have to be a thinking, thoughtful person in order to be able to make these types of decisions in a right way, because it's impossible to spell out all of the details. And hopefully HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give us knowledge and wisdom to make these decisions correctly. What happened to Rabbi Tarfon? It's an incredible story. Say the Mishnah in Mesillas Brachos tells a story. Rabbi Tarfon. There's a machlokes Beisham Beisila about Kriyas Shema, right? What physical position do you have to have in Shema? So remember again, the pasuk by Shema says B'shach b'cha u'v'kumecha, when you lie down and when you get up. Beis Shammai holds that at night you have to say Shema lying down, and by day standing up. Beis Hillel says no, you say Shema, you don't say Shema lying down. B'shach b'cha u'v'kumecha doesn't refer to physical posture, but rather refers to the time of day. The Gemara tells the story of Rabbi Tarfon who was traveling, and it was nighttime, and he decided to be machmir like Beis Shammai. And what did he do? He lay down on the side of the road. Well, he put himself in mortal danger because they were bandits, and he almost got killed. So his fellow rabbinic colleague said to him, "You know what? You should have gotten killed." It's always good to have friends like that, right? In other words, you deserved it. You deserved it. Why? Because what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you being machmir like Beis Shammai? Don't pass like Beis Shammai. So we'll see, what do you see here? Part of Rabbi Tarfon. Rabbi Tarfon is just trying to be machmir. He's just trying to be machmir. There was a machlokes Beisham Beisilal, and it was an important matter for Klal Yisrael. Mipnei machlokes lo sharav sabeneim, v'sof sof nigmar shalacha keBeisilal liolam. The halacha follows Beisilal. The halacha follows Beisilal. Hine kimu shator shigmar din zeh yishar b'chol tokef la'ad v'omi olamim. We'll say ultimately the halacha was decided like Beis Hillel, and that's important because once the halacha is decided, that becomes the practice for Klal Yisrael. V'lo yachlash b'shum panim, and the proper observance should not be weakened in any way. Shelo ta'aseh Torah chas v'chalila kishtei toros. Because I will say again, if halachic practice is not solidified, then what happens? Over time, it becomes like Klal Yisrael's two Torahs. There's going to be a Beis Shammai Torah, Beis Hillel Torah. Therefore, what? V'alki l'das ha'mishnah azos yoser chasidus u'lahachzek keBeis Hillel afilu kula. So it's just such a fascinating example of this. So look what's happening over here. Rabbi Tarfon, right? Rabbi Tarfon sees as a machlokes Beisham Beis Hillel. Obviously, Beis Shammai is more machmir than Beis Hillel, which is true most of the time. Obviously, a number of it, most of the time. So what's going on in Rabbi Tarfon's mind? Rabbi Tarfon says, you know what? I want to be a chassid. So what does it mean to be a chassid in this context, according to Rabbi Tarfon? What does it mean? I'm going to paskin like Beis Shammai and lay down on the ground for Kriyas Shema Shal Arvis. And meanwhile, what were they telling Rabbi Tarfon? Rabbi Tarfon, that's not chasidus. Why? Because Rabbi Tarfon, now say, watch this, Rabbi Tarfon. The halacha was decided like Beis Hillel. And if you decide to be machmir like Beis Shammai, you're Rabbi Tarfon. And if people see you being machmir like Beis Shammai, what will happen? They'll be machmir like Beis Shammai as well. And now you're going to have groups of people being machmir like Beis Shammai, and groups of people being machmir or pasking like Beis Hillel. And what's going to happen, Rabbi? Say, what's going to happen? It's going to be like two Torahs. Klal Yisrael will be split. So Rabbi says it's an incredible example. Here, Rabbi Tarfon thinks he's doing something good by being machmir. He's doing something good by taking something upon himself. What were his colleagues telling him? Rabbi Tarfon, you know what your problem is? You're only looking at your act through the prism of the present. But you're not recognizing the future repercussions of your actions upon class. So I will say, what an incredible example. In other words, they weren't blasting Rabbi Tarfon for being machmir. In other words, you want to be machmir, be a machmir, I will say. But if you want to be machmir, just contemplate the impact of your chumras upon other people. And Rabbi Tarfon, you are a gadol b'Yisrael. So if you are machmir in this situation, that could lead ultimately to masses following you, and no nase kishtei toros. Va'alkin dasa mishnazos yoser chasidus hulahachse keBeis Hillel l'kula milahachmir keBeis Shammai. Therefore, they were saying to Rabbi Tarfon, the Mishnah is saying is, what is chasidus? Or I'll say, what is chasidus in this case? Chasidus in this case is to paskin like Beis Hillel, even though they're more mekel than Beis Shammai. I'm saying, how is that chasidus? That's chasidus because I will say, because the long-term repercussions and ramifications of paskening like Beis Shammai is splintering Klal Yisrael. Isn't that incredible? It's such an incredible maisa here. Rabbi Tarfon, I will say, is not trying to shift the halacha. What is Rabbi Tarfon trying to do? According to Ramchal, what is Rabbi Tarfon trying to do? What is he trying to do? Personal chumrah. I want to be machmir. I'm not telling anybody to do what they. In other words, everyone should do like Beis Hillel. Me, I want to be machmir. And what the Rabbanim, other Rabbanim say to Rabbi Tarfon is, that's fine, but you're Rabbi Tarfon. You're Rabbi Tarfon. You're not an individual. You're Rabbi Tarfon. You're a Gadol Yisrael. People look at what you do and they follow your lead. So if you start this, understand, you're leading the road down to a major split within Klal Yisrael. Say, Rabbi Tarfon, Chasidus for you is not to be machmir like Beis Shammai. Chasidus for you is what? To be maker like Beis Hillel and to reinforce normative halachic practice. Incredible. Ramchal says this story is like a guiding light for us to see what is the true light of Chasidus. Lasos hayashar be'enei Hashem, to do that which is right in the eyes of Hashem. So beautiful. The Ramchal ends off. The Ramchal ends off by teaching us, again, the major theme of this parak, that in order to understand what is truly Chasidus, it's not enough to look at the act through the prism of the present, but rather a person has to look at the ramifications of this action in the future as well. If the ramifications for the future are good, go ahead and do it. But if the ramifications for the future are negative, even if there is some potential for present good, better to abstain. So sometimes performance generates chasidus, and sometimes abstention generates chasidus. But as Ramchal says, a person needs a leiv, what was his lashon? A leiv mavin and a seichel nachum. A person has to have an understanding heart and a literally, again, a correct seichel to be able to analyze it. Zabosai, Mazel Tov on finishing Parak Chaf. In Mesillas Yesharim tomorrow we begin Parak Chaf Aleph. We're not finished with Chasidus yet. We still have a lot with Chasidus. Tomorrow we begin Parak Chaf Aleph. Shkoyach.